Fort Indiantown Gap National Guard Training Center is one of the busiest installations in the United States. Its purpose and goals are to prepare our troops for the military mission. Everything else is secondary. As you participate in outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap, please respect the mission, our troops, and the land on which they train. The following information includes important safety rules and regulations to aid you with participating in outdoor recreation activities at our installation. Please review the presentation carefully as you will be tested on the information at the end. Fort Indiantown Gap consists of over 17,000 acres. The installation is split into two regions, Cantonment, which lies south of Blue Mountain, and the Corridor, which lies north of it. Cantonment holds over 4,000 acres for outdoor recreation. It consists of the Alpha areas and Training Area Charlie 1. Cantonment is also the Deer Management Assistant Program Area 643. The Training Corridor sits between Blue Mountain and Second Mountain and holds over 11,000 acres for outdoor recreation. The Corridor, along Ammo Road, holds DMAP Unit 2840. DMAP will be discussed later in the brief. The bulk of military training occurs in the Corridor, and this area also contains the impact area, which is off-limits. Outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap is a privilege, and all activities are at the discretion of the garrison commander. The garrison commander may suspend any and all activities based on training requirements, available personnel, staffing resources, and/or installation security. Regulation guidelines are required by the Department of Defense and the Department of the Army for any outdoor recreation program. All participants must comply with all Pennsylvania Game Code laws and regulations, along with Fort Indiantown Gap Regulation 215-2. Regulation 215-2 outlines all rules and regulations at Fort Indiantown Gap regarding participation in outdoor recreation and hunting activities. Knowing and understanding the information in this handbook is mandatory. Regulation handbooks can be obtained at the Outdoor Recreation Check-in Facility or at the Wildlife Office, Building 26-151. For COVID-19 mitigation, the Garrison Commander has authorized the use of remote check-ins. Those individuals able to check in through the use of a cell phone or mobile device will be able to do so without going through the screening station in Area 11. Anyone that needs to use the kiosk to check in will need to travel through the drive-up screening station, located directly next to the check-in station, and answer the questions asked, and wear the screening sticker received while at the kiosk. All individuals will need to continue to use the dash cards, and should plan to keep dash cards in their vehicle to avoid having to come to the check station. All hunters must be screened prior to entering any building on post, and hunters must be checked into a training area at all times while hunting. Please note that the Garrison Commander may suspend all activities in the training areas based on training requirements, available personnel, staffing resources, and/or installation security. COVID-19 is a serious threat to all soldiers, employees, support staff, and visitors of Fort Indiantown Gap. The screening stations and other mitigation techniques are not to be taken lightly. Anyone found to be avoiding these areas, when required, will be permanently removed from the hunting program. Fort Indiantown Gap follows all Pennsylvania Game Commission and Fish and Boat Commission seasons and bag limits. However, the Garrison Commander may limit or suspend seasons at any time. All of Fort Indiantown Gap resides in Wildlife Management Unit 4C. The training areas are split between Union and East Hanover Townships. Outdoor recreation generally opens the first Tuesday after Labor Day and closes at the end of small game season in February. We are also open from late April to the end of May for the spring turkey season. The end of spring turkey season marks the end of the outdoor recreation year at Fort Indiantown Gap. Quail hunting is not permitted at Fort Indiantown Gap. Amphibian and reptile hunting or collecting is strictly prohibited. Hunting and scouting are not permitted on Fort Indiantown Gap on Sundays for any reason. Outdoor recreation is closed during the annual Wounded Warrior Hunt and the annual March for the Fallen. Fishing without a Fort Indiantown Gap access permit is authorized along Indiantown Run from the bridge at St. Joseph Springs, south along Route 443 into Marquette Lake. A Fort Indiantown Gap access permit is required to fish in training areas available to outdoor recreation. All persons interested in trapping during fur taking seasons must be registered for outdoor recreation in the iSportsman system and must register trap lines with wildlife personnel. All returning participants must review and update their personal information annually. It is a violation to use vehicles on the installation that have not been added to your iSportsman account. The Wildlife/Forestry Office has moved to Building 26-151 on Tomstown Road. This is the new permanent location. Please stop by with any questions at our new building. There are approximately 50 tagged deer in the cantonment area, some of which have radio collars attached. These tagged deer will aid in providing movement and population data to the wildlife program. These deer should be harvested as though they are any other deer. This study requires a non-biased approach in order to give accurate data. Selecting for or against these deer because they are tagged would alter the results of the study. That said, the harvest of a tagged deer will require the additional step of contacting the Wildlife Office immediately upon recovery of the animal. Failure to do so will result in an immediate revocation of hunting privileges. All collected permit fees go toward sustaining and improving the outdoor recreation program and participant experience. These fees also support habitat creation and maintenance for all wildlife species. The general access permit for adults is $50. It is free for youth. The general access permit is required in order to access Fort Indiantown Gap for any recreational purpose. If you would like to hunt with a rifle during the 2 weeks of regular deer firearms season, you will also need the Firearms Deer Season Access Permit. The Firearms Deer Season Access Permit is $20 for adults and youth. The Firearms Deer Season Access Permit must be purchased to hunt in the corridor during the 14 days of regular firearm deer season. Hunter capacities in training areas open to firearms hunting may be restricted during the 14 days of firearms season. A lottery system may be used to allocate the number of hunters. Cantonment areas are not part of the firearms season access permit. Mentored youth and adults are permitted in accordance with the PA Game Code. Registered guardians must register their mentee with iSportsman and fill out a hold harmless agreement for their mentee and submit it to the Wildlife Office. Mentors are responsible for their mentee and must make them aware of any safety concerns. Mentees must remain with their mentors at all times. If you have a disability and would like a Fort Indiantown Gap disabled hunter permit, please see wildlife staff. Hunters must provide a disabled person's permit as issued by the Pennsylvania Game Commission to receive a Fort Indiantown Gap permit. Non-hunters must provide a disabled person's permit as issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. A Fort Indiantown Gap disabled hunter permit allows participants to travel and/or hunt on any accessible, permanent trail or road within a training area that is open that day and the participant is properly signed into. The check-in, check-out process is part of a digital system called iSportsman. You use this system to register. The Harvest Check-in facility, located across from Range Operations in Building 11-9 along Service Road, contains 2 kiosk check-in stations. You will use these kiosks to check in and out for outdoor activities each day. The process consists of logging in with your username and password, selecting from the available activities and open training areas, and then logging out for the next person. When checking out for the day, please repeat the procedure and confirm whether or not a harvest was made. Remote check-in has been approved until further notice. Remote check-ins will still require the use of a paper dash card. Outdoor recreation users will check in to an open training area before entering that training area and must remain checked into a training area until they enter another training area or until they leave the installation. Failure to check out remotely will be handled no differently than failure to check out at the kiosk. Points will be levied and suspensions given if hunters fail to check out. Any harvested game determined as not checked in will result in immediate revocation of hunting privileges. Upon signing into available training areas for outdoor recreation, a daily vehicle dash card is required for each participant in the vehicle. The card should provide the training area being accessed, as well as the name of the individual, the date, and their vehicle registration number. A new card must be filled out each time new areas are accessed through the iSportsman system. All cards must be displayed on the dash of the vehicle. Please follow all parking rules and regulations. Many locations have designated parking lots that must be used when accessing nearby training areas. In the training corridor, parking is permitted in the designated lots, along Trail 10, and paved roads such as Amel Road, McLean Road, Weiss Road, Cold Springs Road, and Tomstown Road, when accessible and open. Driving on and parking along other trails and roads not listed in FIG Regulation 215-2 is prohibited. Parking at Memorial Lake State Park is also prohibited. This map is an example of a map of the training corridor used for outdoor recreation. The 2018 training area map contains major changes compared to previous years. Area boundaries have moved, and a few area names have changed. Please carefully review the new training area map. Maps are available at the Outdoor Recreation Check-in Facility and the Wildlife Office. It is the responsibility of the participant to obtain, learn, and understand the outdoor recreation map. Areas in red are strictly off-limits and cannot be accessed or entered. Blue areas are only open to archery-type weapons for hunting. Firearms in these areas are strictly prohibited. Purple areas are special regulation areas. Please reference to the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for information on area designations and their meaning. Areas open to outdoor recreation and hunting will change daily. Only what is listed as available in the iSportsman system can be accessed on any given day. Do not enter closed or restricted areas. If access to a closed area is needed, please contact Range Operations and the Wildlife Office to gain permission before entering. Please make a reasonable effort to recover any game species. If game enters a restricted access area, it may not be retrievable. Hunters are allowed to use designated trails that are otherwise restricted to retrieve game when necessary. Under PA Game Code, it is unlawful for a hunter to refuse or neglect to make a reasonable effort to retrieve any game or wildlife that the hunter may have killed or wounded. It is the hunter's sole responsibility to be capable of participating in outdoor recreation activities and to retrieve any game. Do not expect the wildlife staff or range operations to be available to aid in the recovery of game unless the game has entered a closed or restricted area. If wounded game enters a closed or restricted area, it is the hunter's responsibility to contact wildlife staff and/or range operations immediately. Only range operations can grant access to retrieve wounded game in closed or restricted areas. If wounded game enters private property, contact the PA Game Commission. Any and all harvests, including trapped animals, must be reported in the iSportsman system. Hunters are responsible for reporting their harvest that day and must provide the information and measurements requested. During the 14 days of regular deer firearms season, the deer harvest station will be open at the check-in facility. Anytime the deer harvest station is open, hunters must bring their harvested deer to be weighed and measured. Any failure to report a harvest may result in revocation of your access permit. When you harvest a deer, 3 specific measurements are requested on the yellow harvest card report. Nose length. Measure from the corner of the eye to the corner of the nostril. Chest girth. Measure just behind the front legs, pulling the measuring tape tight across the chest. Antler base circumference. Measure the base of each antler below the brow tine, if present. These tables represent previous year's harvest data. Your data is required so that wildlife and their habitats can be properly managed. Although deer harvest reporting seems stable over the years, small game and fur-taking species reporting has been inconsistent at best. Hunters alone control the deer population. Wildlife staff cannot properly manage game species populations without your contributions. Please report any and all harvests. The Deer Management Assistant Program, or DMAP, is a Pennsylvania Game Commission-run program that allows private landowners with overpopulated deer herds to harvest additional antlerless deer. When deer herds are overpopulated, resources such as food are limited in that habitat. Individuals in such a herd either need to disperse to different habitat with better resources, or possibly tolerate lack of nutrition and increased chances of disease. Does with poor nutrition produce fewer fawns and therefore fewer bucks. Stable deer herds below carrying capacity produce more fawns and therefore more bucks. The goal of the DMAP program is to reduce deer population numbers by harvesting more female antlerless deer. It is likely that at least one, but possibly two fawns in this photo are future buck. If this doe had only one fawn, there is only a 50-50 chance that it would be a buck. It is highly preferred that only female deer are harvested with antlerless tags. This year's button buck is next year's 4 or 6 point buck. Take the time to learn to identify the sexes of fawns. Help us manage the population effectively. Hunters may receive up to 2 DMAP coupons per DMAP unit. 2 additional coupons can be acquired for each unit after the initial redeemed tags have been filled, for a total of 4 for each unit. Coupons can be redeemed online or at any PA hunting license vendor. If coupons are taken, they must be redeemed. Redeeming a coupon provides the hunter with an additional antlerless deer tag only good for that DMAP area. Failure to redeem a DMAP coupon will result in the loss of DMAP privileges. Hunters must also report online whether they use the tag to harvest an antlerless deer. Fort Indiantown Gap's DMAP Unit 643 is composed of all huntable areas and training areas south of Blue Mountain. This includes all the Alpha training areas and Area Charlie 1. DMAP 643 tags are only valid within this boundary. Fort Indiantown Gap's DMAP Unit 2840 has a new boundary this year. DMAP 2840 is composed of all huntable areas and training areas in the training corridor. DMAP 2840 tags are only valid within this boundary. Safety violations are taken very seriously. Failure to follow rules and regulations as designated in the Regulation Handbook 215-2 will result in points assigned to the participant. 1 point for minor violations and 2 points for major violations, including many safety violations. Serious violations include, but are not limited to, hunting in an unsafe manner, entering restricted areas, harassment of Fort Indiantown Gap personnel, and/or the use of drugs and/or alcohol. Violations may result in revocation of access permits. Please read over and understand these examples of minor violations that may lead to 1 to 2 points being assigned. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for a complete list. Please read over and understand these examples of serious violations that may lead to revocation. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for a complete list. There are many ways to stay up to date with current changes and information. Visit the announcements page for current, up-to-date, important information. If you want to know what areas are open for hunting, you can call the number provided and listen to a list of open areas. There is also the navigation map, which you can open from the iSportsman homepage. You can view open areas for the current day and the next day. Finally, if you have any questions, please first visit the Frequently Asked Questions page, which covers many common questions. Remember that knowing how to safely access Fort Indiantown Gap for outdoor recreation is the most important aspect of this program. If you are a returning hunter, please be sure to update your contact information each year. Phone numbers, addresses, and vehicles change. This information must be kept up to date. Learn the new map and what boundaries have changed from previous years. Know how to sign in and sign out. Deer must be checked at the harvest station when it is open, and hunters must report any and all harvests in the iSportsman system. All tagged or collared deer must be checked in. Please follow all DMAP regulations. Remember that all Pennsylvania Game Commission and Fish and Boat Commission regulations apply at all times. Non-compliance will result in loss of privileges for all participants. Please note these important contacts. All access and safety and/or emergency concerns must be reported to range operations. Emergency situations can also be reported to the Fort Indiantown Gap Police. For any outdoor recreation program or wildlife issues, please contact one of these wildlife personnel. The wildlife cell number is the best means of immediate communication during outdoor recreation seasons. Please use email for non-urgent issues or questions. The Fort Indiantown Gap Conservation Club meets in Building 13-4 along Clement Avenue, the third Thursday of every month. The Wildlife Office is Building 26-151 along Tomstown Road. Please check the box indicating that you have watched the entire video.